in advance because I don't think I'm going to top any of these speakers here today. So, terror raids just a few weeks ago beamed into our living rooms like an NCIS episode, which is what Randa Abdel-Hatta had called it. I'm getting really sick and tired of tuning into my TV or reading my newspaper or listening to the radio, and all I'm getting is feartainment. That's all I'm getting. It's really been quite difficult to protect myself from all the negativity that I seem to be surrounded by. The government, law enforcement agencies and the media has made no secret or doubt as to who is the enemy in this country, and you're looking at it. You're looking at it. It's Muslims in this country. They're the people who are meant to represent the biggest threat to this country. And the level of fear in the Muslim community, particularly amongst Muslim women, is worse now than what it was at 9/11. It's worse now than what it was directly after 9/11. Can you imagine that? Anti-Muslim or Islamophobic sentiments have been percolating virtually unchecked in this country for a number of years. And our concerns regarding this has pretty much fallen on deaf ears. It's been fallen on deaf ears from the government, from the media, from law enforcement, pretty much from everyone who we would expect some kind of leadership from. The fact that Islamophobia even exists has been denied by our Minister for Women, by members of the coalition, the police, and some sections of the media. The dominant narrative surrounding Muslim women in this country has been carefully constructed, fabricated, manipulated, and it's been packaged to be sold to you as an authentic, true Muslim woman's narrative. However, we've really just been objectified by men in suits, while they crank the machine of war, count their money in the background, and quite frankly, it's all bullshit. My very own flesh and blood as a woman that is exploited to sell everything from condoms to cars to coffee to coke. It's been sexualised as the exotic other woman with large eyes, waiting behind a niqab, waiting for my imperial master. My very own flesh and blood, my body, it's now a battleground. And I'm very fearful that it's now being sold for war. It's been sold to the Australian public to justify war. Even inside my womb, where my ovaries rest, they're viewed as grenades, capable of being a jihad baby maker, thanks to the Daily Telegraph. My role as a mother's been perverted. I'm now raising radicalised young men, hiding in the background. Never mind that in our religion, paradise is at the bottom of your mother's feet. Muslims, especially Muslim women, simply don't trust the police. We see them as mere state enforcers of politicised policies rather than good, genuine dialogue or consultation. Muslim women rarely report their incidences to the police. So they simply don't have the data of what we've been experiencing. A handful of Muslim women started the Islamophobia Register, basically to set up an independent and safe way for Muslim women to report their incidences of abuse, for physical assaults, intimidation and harassment. It started prior to the raids. However, directly after the raids, we saw a dramatic increase in the incidences that have been reported, including the level of violence that was being used, and very troubling for me as a mum. Usually when this took place, young children were being present. So young children, very young children, sometimes even babies in prams, we're seeing their mother being attacked or being pushed to the ground, having hot coffee thrown on her, being bashed up, being pushed off a train, arms being broken, bricks being thrown into family homes. We've had men coming up to women saying that they're going to burn their hijab. We've been told that death threats have been received. I mean, this is, to have it completely ignored by your government, by your media and by your police is so distressing. It's very distressing. We now expect racism. Muslim women, it's become normal for us. We expect it. We modify our movements in our culture, in our society. We've had women staying at home, they don't leave the house, they don't take their children to the playground until their husbands get home from work. We've had women essentially being pushed into their homes, which is exactly what we don't want. If we want them to become part of our society, and I'm using, these aren't my words, and if we want them to assimilate, why wouldn't you crack down on the fact that they only feel safe within the confines of the walls of their home? It's just mind-boggling. And still we get the same message, it doesn't exist because we don't have the data. I repeat what I've said to the police, I repeat what I've told to the government. You don't have the data because we don't trust you. You don't have the data because you're the ones harassing us half the time. We don't feel safe reporting it to you. And can I tell you, as recently as last night, a sister reported some terrible abuse, and the police essentially said, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. And this really irks me, because at the same time, we have a new Speak Out hotline being introduced. Essentially, it's a hotline. You call if you've been suffered from any kind of physical or verbal abuse. Okay, it sounds great, nice new shiny number. It's really just coming out of current resources. No one's going to call because essentially we don't trust you. You're not working on the fundamental mistrust with our community. So a phone number, what's the use of it? Why aren't you making sure that when we do report a crime, it's being reported, an event number's being given? This is overwhelming feedback. We encourage people who make a report to us to take it to the police as well. And we know, we get the feedback from the woman. What are the police saying? Which station was that? Why aren't they reporting it? Did you get an event number? What's the follow-up? In New South Wales, we have one biased crimes coordinator. One biased crimes coordinator for the whole of New South Wales. The fact that we only have one biased crimes coordinator in New South Wales when we have such a diverse community just smacks of hypocrisy. You know where the priorities are. I hold the government directly responsible for fanning the flames of hatred and bigotry in this country, for making Muslim women unsafe, for designating us into our homes. It's not a declared area yet, is it? No? So you're looking at the new boogeyman, the new red under the red, a dangerous threat to Australia. And let's be clear, my body and my clothing has been politicised to differentiate us from them. It reinforces this false dichotomy of what a Muslim woman is. And it compares that to the free, educated, liberal Western woman, which is of course bullshit as well. Right? This has got nothing to do with feminism. It's got nothing to do with rights. Misogyny and barbaric acts against against women overseas have just been used to justify our foreign policy. I want to know who supported the Taliban, who is the ally of Saudi Arabia, who created ISIS, who displaced nearly 2 million Iraqis, who destroys countries, who rains down bombs on innocent civilians, of women and children. And I'm this the greatest threat that Australia's facing right now? I don't think so. Turning closer to home, let's not go overseas, let's just stay in Australia, right? Who's responsible for the domestic violence victims, that who are women who have died this year? 58 women, not Muslim, but just women. Who's responsible for the blood who has the blood on their hands? Who's responsible for the detention of female refugees, making them vulnerable to sexual assaults? For humiliating them, so every time they have their period, they need to ask for a tampon or a pad one at a time. Who's responsible for the life expectancy of Indigenous women in this country? It's not me, is it? Yet I'm the threat. I'm the reason why we need these most draconian laws that a Western democracy has ever seen. I'm the reason why these legal principles that form the bedrock of democracy are now being sacrificed on the altar of security to the false gods of Abbott and Brandis. I'm the reason. I'm so dangerous that a rule was passed that when I enter my own parliament, I have to sit in a separate box because I'm that much of a threat. Another issue. I went on Q&A recently as a special guest because Brandis didn't want anyone else on the panel. And I asked him a question from the audience, and I was directly underneath Brandis. And it was like I was looking up at my master. It was very much a master-slave relationship going on there, right? That had been set up. I had to sit there like a naughty schoolgirl with my hands up while I asked the question. Do you know how insulting that is? Do you know how ridiculous that is, that our system is set up so I can't get a straight answer from our democratically elected leaders? I need to go on Q&A, and then I need to sit there silently? He kindly reassured me, however, that we were victims, and that he was the knight in shining armour, along with the other members of the coalition. Maybe I don't fucking think so. No, that is definitely not right. And excuse me for being angry, but you can tell I'm just so fed up. I'm fed up with a community that is absolutely being over-policed, that is being sold to the Australian public. It's divisive and inflammatory language that's coming from the very people that we need to protect us right now. It's just all just rubbish. Muslims are the new poster children being used to attack civil liberties in this country and fundamental human rights. We're the reason. Those who are powerful, privileged, socially connected, legally protected, they don't need to fear the knock on the door by the AFP. Not all those who pose a threat to the freedoms or the safety of Australians stand behind a black flag, producing propaganda to be watched in a theatre of war or terrorism. Some wear expensive suits, and they know full well that the revolution won't be televised in the Murdoch press, and they stand, unfortunately, behind the Australian flag.